A really quite cool Tyranid miniature reveal today. Looks like we've got the new Deathleaper. He'll be jumping from the shadows to tear down your leaders with his new bigger and more sinister sculpt. Let's talk about the new Tyranid miniature with his biological cape and talk through his rules for 10th edition. Hello and welcome back to Allspecs Tactics, where today we have another big Tyranid miniature reveal. Looks like hot on the heels of Leviathan, we're already seeing the new Deathleaper miniature, which I guess is going to be dropping alongside the new Codex. At first impressions, I do really quite like the sculpt. I think he looks incredibly sinister with those great big feeder tendrils and the enormous claws it's got, and I'd argue that he's a big upgrade on the current resin miniature that we have at the moment. Let's talk through the model, the release, the lore, compare him with the old one, and talk through his rules for 10th edition. So first up, I had thought that Tyranid and Space Marine reveals might be a little way off. Games Workshop have basically declared that they will be running that Ogham campaign. That only goes live on the 26th of June, and then people have a bit of time to play some game of Space Marines against Tyranids, submit them online, and then the winner of those games gets to see their new miniatures early. Seems they're not going to be too shy about teasing us a few little miniatures before then though. Apparently Deathleaper was revealed to celebrate 500,000 followers on Warhammer's Instagram page. As a reward, they've shown us off the new Deathleaper. Maybe an appropriate enough one for Instagram, as I think he's a really nice looking miniature. Plus, of course, he's also wearing the latest fashion in biological capes out the back of him. I think he was always going to be one of the more likely ones to get a new miniature. We had things like the Parasite of Vortex redone. Seemed unlikely that they were going to be dropping their kind of character Tyranids as a result, and he had an old resin miniature that had gone out of production in the not too distant past. Given that we know that there's going to be an infiltration swarm formation coming for Tyranids, then it kind of makes sense that they'll probably redo Lictors as well. If both Von Ryan's Leapers and Deathleaper get a new miniature, I think it would be a pretty strange move to leave the Lictors with their old resin one. I suppose it's also not impossible that the Lictor could actually be a dual kit with this miniature. They're not really all that different, and maybe a head swap plus a slightly different pose, and maybe have the option to take the cape on and off. That could be a way that they could get two models out of one. Obviously no official confirmation about release dates or prices yet. It will almost certainly be coming with the new Tyranid Codex, which is billed for autumn sometime, and price-wise I'd guess he'd be a bit more expensive than most standard Games Workshop character miniatures, maybe around about the £30, €40 or $50 mark if I had to guess. As for who Deathleaper is, he's been around in the Tyranid lore for really quite a while. A specialised infiltration and assassin organism, perhaps particularly notable for being incredibly well camouflaged, blending in with its environment to the extent where enemies can't see where it's gone, and it always gets the jump on its foe. When it makes contact with the enemy, it generally seems to be employed to assassinate key leaders, or to otherwise cause terror and havoc, much more so than any one Tyranid organism should really be able to. The Deathleaper, when it was first encountered, was one of the ones when the Imperium first realised that Tyranids actually evolved and adapted and didn't just stay as the same organisms that they always were, instead being an ever-evolving foe that gets better and stronger every time you fight them. I did quite enjoy having a quick read over a story that showed the Deathleaper's intelligence. What seems to be its most famous story is that there is a lore snippet where it bursts into an Imperial bunker, deciding not to kill a cardinal as it sensed that deciding to make him a martyr would actually embolden the defenders, instead just slaughtering his entire support staff, vanishing into the shadows, leaving it a little while for the Imperium to recover and to get their command structure back together before bursting in to do it all over again, perhaps understandably breaking the Cardinal's mind and nerve so he couldn't lead his forces and command the defence of the system. I guess not much would show that the Emperor had deserted you more than having the entirety of the people that you knew killed in front of you. Going back to the new miniature, and I feel like reception for this is generally pretty positive. I think it's a big improvement on the old one personally. Really like the very sinister looking feeder tendrils around the mouth. The claws look kind of similar with the great big hooked lictor ones with all the barbs. It's got the great big talons with the elongated central finger talons, and I think it's posed quite well, not just a tactical rock but an entire tactical piece of ruin. That does feel kind of appropriate for him though, jumping around on terrain and blending in with stuff. I think the first detail that just about everyone noticed when this guy came out, though, was that he seems to be a caped Tyranid. If you can see the back of him, he's got a sort of biological cape type thing, so one of the first Tyranids sporting a bit of clothing, maybe. Realistically, I guess that's part of him, maybe could be somehow used to blend himself in with the environment, could be a camouflage type thing, I suppose. I feel like that might divide opinions a little bit. I feel like a few people might not like it so much, but I think it does add to his general feel as a bit more of a Tyranid character, as opposed to just any other bug in the swarm. Broadly though, I think it looks like a cool miniature, not surprised that people have had a positive reaction to him. Just for comparison, here's the old miniature that he's going to be replacing. This guy's no longer available on the Warhammer 40k web store, though to be honest I feel like the update is a very good one, I must admit that personally out of the Tyranid range, I wasn't the most sold on this Deathleaper miniature. I just feel like it's posed a little bit awkwardly with those great big talons just jutting up basically almost vertically. He just feels a lot more static as a miniature, with the rest of him just kind of standing there, as opposed to the new one, which really looks like he's just about to pounce on something. I'd argue he looks like a massive improvement overall, though has kept most of the same details really. The claws and talons design looks basically the same, and again mainly the new detail that's added is that cape of his. That barbed spike that comes out of his back as well, maybe I think is just a little bit on the weirdly mounted side. From the front as well, I thought that that might have been a tail, but it looks like it's more coming out of the back of his carapace, which is maybe perhaps a little bit odd. What's quite cool is that since Index Tyranids dropped early, we do actually already know the rules for Deathleaper. He's an epic hero model for the Tyranids army and can't be the warlord, so that means that you can only have one of them, but you can also have up to 3 other lictors as well, plus a bunch of leapers to keep him company if you really want a lot of infiltration organisms. Deathleaper's an infiltrator, so can set up in the midboard. He's got the lone operative, so he can't get shot at greater than 12 inches, and even if you get within 12, he's got stealth for -1 to hit, and invulnerable save of 4 plus and 7 wounds. Definitely not the easiest model to put down unless you've got a fair bit of focused fire. In combat, he strikes with a very similar profile to the standard Lictor, 6 attacks hitting on 2s at strength 7, AP 2 and damage 2, really quite good for killing elite infantry there. And of course he basically is renowned for being a bit of a character assassin. Those attacks all have precision, so if he jumps into a squad with a leader in it, he can hit all of those attacks straight into the leader and not worry about chewing through the bodyguards first. If he manages to get his clutches on his prey and kill one of the characters, then you gain 1 command point. Not going to happen all the time, but handy enough when it does, I suppose. And otherwise, it looks like his datasheet special rule is called Fear of the Unseen, an aura within 6 inches that gives -1 leadership and battle shock. Plus, also in the battle shock step of the opponent's command phase, they must take a battle shock test if they've taken any casualties whatsoever within 6 inches. That's just going to be a lot easier to trigger on enemy units than making them half strength, so he will generally likely hand out some leadership tests, maybe stop some opponents on objectives. He is kind of intimidating to charge as well in the midfield, as he has fights first, means that he'll be able to strike before the enemy unit charging him if he's selected first. It means that some units just won't be able to safely charge them, as he'll kill half of them beforehand, and perhaps particularly units that have a fragile character buffing them. Space Marines might not enjoy charging in and basically guaranteeing the kill on him, but also having their lieutenant ripped to shreds before. Whether or not he actually winds up being better than Lictor or not kind of depends on points. The battle shock thing is nice, though he does lack their pheromone trail thing, where they can use rapid ingress for cheap if they want. For the most part, if they are starting in the midfield, though, I'd guess that having the leadership debuff is probably better, plus he also gains an extra wound. Kind of depends on the points disparity. If Lictors are massively cheaper, then the leadership debuff might not be worth it. Looks cool though, definitely infiltrates handy, and so is lone operative and fights first. Looks like a difficult model to approach. Let me know your thoughts on the new miniature and his new rules though. What do you make of the new Deathleaper in Warhammer 40k 10th? If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming. I do tend to post new ones just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support and keep these videos coming. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.